Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Josua, and today we're going to dive deep into the Punggol GRC battle, one of the most hotly contested and potentially disruptive contests of GE 2025. And this time, we're not just speculating, we're using a real analytical model. Allan Lichtman's 13 Keys to the White House is a framework and a prediction system designed to predict election outcomes. But we'll adapt it to not just Singapore's context, but Punggol as well. This model doesn't care about personal biases. As a Punggol resident myself, I'm trying to steer away from this, but it adheres to the structure beneath the surface. So big factors like economic trends, scandals, policy changes, and charisma of the incumbent and the challenger. So that structure is starting to shift. One of the youngest, if not the youngest town in Singapore could be up for a major upset. It's quite similar demographic base to Sengkang GRC, so it's a real possibility. So let's set the scene. It's brand new. Punggol GRC, it absorbed Punggol West SMC, which was comfortably held by Senior Minister of State Xueling in GE 2020. But this time the stakes are higher and the competition is sharper as well. It also absorbs or cut in half Pasir Ris Punggol GRC, which was then helmed by DPM Teo Chee Hin. But now the PAP slate features Xueling that we spoke about just now, but it also adds a really, I guess, important person in this mode. So Deputy Prime Minister Gan Kim Yong was seen to have a last-minute shift from Choa Chu Kang GRC to Punggol GRC, and he's widely respected, but I wouldn't say he has super much charisma. Over the last week, however, I would say that across the social media team and across online sentiments, people have warmed up to him slightly. So that's something interesting to note. Janelle Putucherry is the third person, and he's been in Punggol for a while. He's the party whip, but can be slightly polarizing to some people, with especially because of the NS criticism, if we're real. But if it were me, I'd cut him some slack. Just Wikipedia him. I don't think it's a really fair stone to throw, to be completely honest with you. We also have Xueling, who's a Labour MP, but with not much more public recognition. I would say the Workers' Party, on the other hand, they are also going hard. We have WP star catch Harpreet Singh, who's senior counsel, one of Singapore's unequivocally top legal minds. We have Alexis, whose online popularity is skyrocketed. Just take a look at her YouTube introduction video, the Workers' Party one. It is about, I think, 250,000 views already. The other two, Jackson Owl, the one that we spoke to about 4 or 5 days ago, who honestly kind of impressed Ken Boon and I. And to add it all off, we have Siti Aliyah, who's also quite an interesting candidate as well. So the big question is, can WP flip Punggol? So let's break it down using the 13 keys. I'll go through each key, explain their criteria, and apply it specifically to Punggol. Key 1 is party mandate. It's held if the ruling party maintains a strong national performance. PAP's national vote did drop from 69.9% in 2015 to 61.23% amidst the COVID pandemic. It's a significant 8-point swing. It's still a majority, but the trend is representative. You know, in presidential elections, we don't have like an equivalent of a midterm election, so looking at presidential elections, Tharman did win with about 70% of the vote, and even Kok Song, who some people might perceive as a establishment candidate of sorts, pulled 15%. Together, it's about 85 to 86% that's kind of supporting the incumbent or establishment candidate. Opposition just had 14%, which was Mr. Tan Kin Lian. So while the parliamentary mandate has eroded, electoral dominance can be seen as still quite intact. We would say that this key is held. Key 2, contest. So it's held if the ruling party in this region faces no strong challenger. This key is false. This is the first time Punggol GRC is contested, and it is the first time, all my respect to SDA's Desmond Lim, but WP is a significant step up from the SDA when contesting in this ward, and that matters. You've got Harpreet Singh, senior counsel, whose credibility is unquestioned. Alexis brings their youth appeal, Alexis Jackson, and Siti Aliyah. This isn't a token challenge, it's real, and I would say this key is lost. So far it's one key that's held, one key that's lost. Next, incumbent charisma. Now let's talk about Gan Kim Yong, he's somewhat similar to, I think, how Jeffrey Koo kind of described Heng Swee Keat. He's more of a really hard worker, quiet, but people can remember his work, especially with his strong partnership and working relationship with Prime Minister Lawrence Wong in the COVID task force, and now being front and center of Singapore-US trade relations, and just being our trade representative, and also the task force man. I would say before this week he's respected, but I wouldn't necessarily consider him a charismatic presence. However, in the past week, I can see the case being made. I can see his contextual, important, kind of like charisma, I would say. With Senior Minister of State Xueling as a bright spot, she connects extremely well on social media. Just take a look at all her Facebook lives. She's doing storybook reads. She's doing resident updates and everything. She walks the ground, presents well. I would say she's naturally a charismatic person. In this case, over the line, they both kind of carry this key, even if the rest of the team is a bit more lower profile. Number 4, Challenger Charisma. Do we really need to go across this? Most lawyers stand to benefit in the realm of political theatre and political arena. Harpreet Singh isn't just a regular lawyer, he's literally senior counsel, which is like an elite group of the Supreme Court, and his entry into politics, especially for the Workers' Party, is seen as a huge coup. And to top it off, he isn't just the only one hard carrying his team. We have Jackson Au, who has given pretty sizable speeches in the rallies, and we have Alexis Dang, whose popularity we already mentioned is quite sizable across social media. And Siti Alia too isn't a pushover, and most of their candidates, I would say, are heavyweights. This is a false key, and the key is lost here. So again, it's 2 for the incumbent and 2 for the Workers' Party. Let's look into policy change. I think this is quite a debatable thing. So we have national efforts and we have local efforts. Nationally, we have the job support scheme in terms of unemployment benefits. It's seen as once unthinkable under the PAP, but it's now being rolled out. And it's a major philosophical shift. I would say the key is help, but we don't even have to go just for that. In Punggol, locally, it is transforming. The Punggol Digital District and SIT campus, their long-term infrastructure plays. We have new MRT station Punggol Coast ready, and we also have Rivera MRT, which is coming in about 7 years. So I would say this key, because of the tangible, visible kind of like benefits that residents are seeing on the ground, I would say this key is held. On the next key, social unrest. So Singapore doesn't do protests, right? There's discontent, yes, especially over the transport issues in this region, but it's not social unrest and it's not instability of sorts. I would say the key is held in this regard. This is interesting, the scandal key. Nationally, the NTUC Income Alliance saga has made a lot of hit waves across social media. I do think, however, that it's being concentrated in the Jalan Kayu SMC. In Punggol, I don't think DPM Gun's role as MAS chairman, I don't think residents have made that connection in a negative light. So I would say no smoking gun here, in spite of the ex-NTUC CEO's letters about DPM Gun. I don't think the connection has stuck necessarily. So key held in this aspect. Moving on to key 8, foreign policy success. This is really an easy one. Singapore continues to be steady, but there's no defining foreign policy breakthrough, something transformational, something inspiring. So if Singapore was like the first country to drop tariffs from 10% to 0%, that's seen as a major win. But that didn't happen. I would say that the status quo doesn't really translate into something that's transformational. I would say the key is lost in this regard. Moving on to key 9, however, to give the government some credit, absolutely not. The key is held because Singapore is still seen as neutral and competent and respected on the global stage, on the ASEAN stage. I would say that the recent Straits Times reporting of DPM Gun's conversations with his straight counterpart, I would say that has helped as well in this regard, and I would say we haven't had a major foreign policy breakthrough, we also don't have a failure in this sense. So the key is held in this. On the key 10, strong short-term economy. This is the elephant in the room, and this is what I feel that some US analysts and even Allan Lichtman himself kind of failed to see the bigger picture. You can kind of like go to your everyday man, show him a chart that inflation is decreasing, but if hawker food prices and rentals increase, the 2% GST increase is still weighing on the back of everyone's minds, and even small business overheads, they are rising. I think the lived experience triumphs over what could be seen as inflation easing in this regard. It does tell you, however, that voters are feeling it. So I would say the key is lost in this. Moving on, a strong long-term economy. This one's a bit more debatable. So Singapore's long-term position as a trading nation is uncertain because deglobalization is real. We're really moving away from that 1944 Bretton Woods and 1980s neoliberal world economic and trade order. Jobs in MNCs and tech are less secure. Young PMETs do feel job fears and retrenchment fears, even with forward planning. And the storm, as you can see it, with amidst the PAP's framing, there is some true sense to this. And because confidence is weaker in a long-term economy, I would say this key is lost as well. Now let's take a look at the 12th key, which is third-party strength. In Lichtman's original definition, the incumbent loses this key if a significant third-party or independent campaign is running. In the US, third parties split the incumbent vote, hurting the ruling party. And this is because they have a very, very strong two major party kind of system with Democrats and Republicans. But in Singapore, the context is a little different. Party candidate would hurt a strong challenger. And this is pretty real in the Tampines GRC. It's not saying that the WP would certainly lose there, but I do think they tend to split challenger votes versus incumbent votes. To this, PAP just versus WP clean fight with no third party or fringe party jumping in. Disadvantages for the WP because they avoid the opposition vote split. So even though Lichtman would consider this a key held, in Singapore, no third party equals opposition gains strength. And this hurts the incumbent. So we flip it in this case, and this key is lost for the incumbent. And it's almost 6-6 as we go to the final one, which is an incumbent run. And in this case, an incumbent is running beyond the Workers' Party's 9 days of campaigning. You have to understand that the PAP has about 4 to 5 years marketing themselves on the ground, providing that steady hand to residents. And if you ask any business owner, marketing a new product that will triumph the original competitor, I would say is quite difficult within such a strict time frame. In this respect anyways, the incumbent does win here. And so what does that mean for our analysis? Fully make sure that this prediction is meaningful, let's re-examine one more key, and that is key 1, which is the party mandate. In the original Lichtman definition, the key is held if the incumbent party has gained seats in the last general election or midterms, or has a solid mandate. So in Singapore's context, the PAP did drop 69% around there to 61%, which is about an 8%, 9% percentage points drop, but they still held 83 out of 93 seats. They retain supermajority control and still command national level dominance, which is something that a lot of countries do not have. So even in constituencies where margins narrow, you would say that the default governing party has clear executive legitimacy, or at least is what PM Lee described it back then, a clear mandate. And that is true. So while it was a swing, it's not a collapse. And even to add on to that, in the presidential election in 2023, you could kind of like extract that about 85 to 86% of the vote, or at least 70% of the vote, was for an establishment continuity. So this reaffirms the public acceptance of the incumbency or PAP aligned or establishment figures, even in symbolic contests like the presidential election. So I would conclude that this party mandate, the key is still held. It's shaken a little bit, but it's still intact. There is a deep level of online criticism and fatigue that's available online, but I don't think this is translated into systemic rejection yet. Further ado, let's do a quick recap. So on key 1, party mandate, despite an 8-point swing against the PAP in 2020, they still hold a dominant majority in parliament. The Taman landslide in the 2023 presidential election further reinforces this establishment legitimacy. Key is held. Key 2, contest, false. Punggol will see a strong opposition challenge for the first time. Key 3, incumbent charisma. Key held. It's true. Although Gan Kim Yong is soft-spoken, this new rebranding, I think, can work for a lot of Punggol residents. Xueling as well helps a lot. The key is held. So it's 2-1. Challenger charisma, they lose. Clearly, the WP team have a ton of charisma. So it's 2-2. Policy change is true. The key is held. So key 6, social unrest, the key is held there. Key 7, scandal. That's true as well. It doesn't necessarily translate into a Punggol fight, as I think it may in other areas. Key 8, foreign policy success. The key is lost. Foreign policy failure. No blunder as well. Singapore's international standing is still pretty good. Key is held here. Key 10, strong short-term economy and long-term economy is false. And with this new definition of a third-party strength, the key is false here because it flips in Singapore, the key. The incumbent is running again. So the final tally, it is 7 keys held by the PAP with 6 keys lost. This doesn't necessarily translate into no chance that the incumbent wins, but it does kind of predict that they can narrowly win under the Lichtman model. I would say that the PAP will hold Punggol GRC, although with a slim margin. I'm gonna go with 51%, 49% to the Workers' Party. However, this is not just a safe zone. If sentiment on the ground tips one way or the other, I wouldn't be surprised if the Workers' Party does get it over the finish line. At the end of the day, change is pretty hard to stomach for the vast majority of people. And if you do want to win, a lot of things need to be happening for you. And I just don't see that 20% swing. And you can tell me about online sentiment rises for the opposition hasn't necessarily always translated to actual votes on polling day. And for that, I do think that the incumbent will still hold on to Punggol GRC. But I wouldn't be surprised if the opposition do win by the narrowest of margins. Thing that you're predicting as well? Do you have a different interpretation of some of the keys? Do you have any other comments? Leave them in the section below. And once again, it's been Red Dot Perspective.